again after a couple of days. I'm here in Spain. I wanted to talk about a couple of things that I've been thinking about and also related to my last 2 or 3 videos. And what do I mean specifically? So I posted this YouTube community post a couple of days ago about this guy. It was like a sketch drawing, this guy dragging this huge weight behind him. And I think the text was something like, well, slowing down or stuck or can't get stuff done in life. No, it's not the economy, it's you. And I've been thinking a lot about myself and using myself here today in this live as an example in terms of what has kept me to a certain extent stuck in life. And I pinpointed 2 things. Number one, I have my notes here, so I'm looking to the side. So negative self-talk and trying to avoid the emotions. And I created specific or made specific videos about this too, this week and over the weekend. And if we start with the negative self-talk, it's not a complex topic, but let me try to simplify it a little bit because it might be complicated if you don't understand what I mean. Negative self-talk in case of me is probably the biggest thing that has slowed me down in my life. But it also is one of those things that has enabled me to be extremely productive. Let me explain. I think negative self-talk, for those people who do it constantly, comes from their childhood. It's some sort of a trauma always related to us not getting unconditional love. And I'm not blaming anybody. It could be just a minor incident that turned into a bigger thing, and then because of your character trait and your personality and your DNA, then it compounded over time. I'm not going into details as far as what my case has been, but I've always been the type of person who values hard work more than anything. I've been able to push myself to the limit ever since I was I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old. I remember going to school and stressing about the math test or the English test or whatever test. And it was to me always about the end result. And I felt that was never good enough. And I think usually if people can relate to this, the biggest issue is that when you were a kid, maybe your parents, maybe somebody else didn't give you unconditional love. And what does that mean in practice? Unconditional love is something that is not related to the end result. A rule number 1 that I try to apply when it comes to my own kids is always that give them praise, credit for the effort, never when it comes to what they achieved. And I think many parents make this mistake, fundamental mistake. And in the worst case, it can result in a situation where the kid is actually just always staring at the end game. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a 5th grader at home, and he or she goes to a math test and comes back with a very good grade, but didn't study at all. What do the parents usually say? Great job, because it's the end result, it's the trophy that in their opinion matters the most. But what if your kid came back with the D or E, but studied like crazy, worked his ass off? What do the parents usually say? I don't know, some of them probably are super mad because, okay, well, this is not acceptable, you gotta be this and that. But I think in a case like that, you have to understand that you give praise for the effort. But if you always do the opposite, then kids basically learn that love and credit and the praise is conditional to the end result. And I think if I look at myself, nothing has been ever good enough. But you can imagine what the positive of that coin is, or that side of the coin is. Well, it has kept me pushing. I've been training for 33 years at the gym. I never skipped a workout unless I've been sick or injured, basically. Just keep going, eating the same foods, achieving the results. But that's primarily because I've been promoting and boosting myself, giving myself motivation based on that negative self-talk. It's like, okay, you're not enough. There's always something that I can fine-tune. There's always something I can be better at. And I think that's a fine line. When it's so-called, it's the push motivation. There's 2 kinds. There's the push and the pull. And I'm talking about the push now. This negative self-talk has been a problem with me, and I think why it's a problem. One might ask that, okay, well, what the fuck's wrong with that? Okay, why can't you just keep pushing yourself, like whipping yourself and using the stick more than the carrot all the time? I think that's fine, but at the end of the day, it doesn't make you run any faster, and at some point you become miserable as hell. So happiness is out the window. One might say, okay, fuck happiness. But I think there's two things. There's the science of achievement and the joy of fulfillment. I think I've been able to crack the science of achievement, but I've been super bad at the joy of fulfillment. And that's because my fuel has been dirty. I've been using should more than want. Of course, I only do those things that I enjoy, but I felt that I'm obligated to also work on other stuff in life. But again, so this was basically the starting point for the whole video that I created. You can go to my website, my YouTube channel, and take a look at the 3 or 4 minute video there and see if it makes sense to you, if it adds value in your life. But negative self-talk, and then the question is, okay, fine, okay, you keep motivating yourself like that, but how are you able to get away from that? That's the $1 million question. To me, I look at change this. So there's always 2 types of things that you have to master. First thing that you got to do is unlearn, and then the second thing is relearn. So when it comes to negative self-talk, I have to somehow make myself aware that I'm doing something to myself that's extremely toxic. So that's the stop. So first you got to unlearn so that you no longer do the bad stuff that's toxic for you, and then you have to relearn the new habits. Most people always focus on the relearn part. Let's say I want to learn how to play badminton, or I want to learn how to play volleyball. But first you got to unlearn those bad habits so that you can actually relearn and get going with the new thing. And as far as my negative self-talk to motivate myself, I don't know if I in the past was even willing to let go of that, because it served me so well. It gave me endless fuel. And if we look at super successful people in life, and I'm not talking about myself or putting myself in this group, but if we talk about billionaires, there are 3 character traits that, according to studies, all these people share. One is this deep insecurity. It's this never-ending fuel that keeps you going. And that's the same thing that I just mentioned, basically. It's just like, I gotta grind. And I would argue that many of these people probably motivate themselves by talking to themselves negatively all the time, putting themselves down. And then there are a couple of others, but that's one of them. The other one is delayed gratification. So you can basically move the goalpost to the future constantly and just like delay the gratification. I don't need the prize now. I can just take it later, and I can grind and I can grind. And then there's this superiority complex, meaning that these people think that they are meant to do, or were meant to do, big things in life. But again, if we talk about this negative self-talk, so first you got to make yourself aware that you're doing this to yourself. And it took me freaking 47 years, believe it or not, to understand that I'm talking to myself like this. And it's extremely destructive and why is it destructive? Because those negative thoughts in your mind, they start to shape up your whole character. And then you start downplaying yourself, and you're just not getting that much out of yourself. So it's not a question of being on par with your top level performance, but you actually, there's plenty of untapped potential, because you don't get all of that capacity and that talent out of you that you could otherwise. Okay, so the way I do it nowadays is that I basically start writing down, or somehow making myself aware of my bad habit. And what I started doing, this might sound completely ridiculous, but I started ouching myself. Meaning, every time I challenge myself, okay, catch yourself when you think and talk to yourself. Say ouch every time when you say something bad about yourself, about somebody else. And then you realize pretty soon that, oh my God, I've been doing this 50 or 100 or 150 times every day. And it's crazy. And then you start to understand, okay, this is a huge problem for me. I need to stop. But like I said, the first thing is to make yourself aware that you are actually doing it, because otherwise you can't stop anything, or you can't change your behavior. And then the question is, okay, how do I replace that? Or how do I change my behavior then after that? So like I said, first, make yourself aware, write down your thoughts, maybe record yourself, do a voice memo, or do something that works for you. And then little by little, you start replacing those bad words with something else. And what I have done with myself is that I have these one-day challenges. And I'm like, okay, for one day, I'm not allowed to say anything bad about myself or about anybody else. And little by little, I can start reconditioning. I can start to recondition my mind and make sure that those negative thoughts are no longer there. It's easy. It's not easy. It's really, really hard. One of the hardest things I've ever done. But I'm a big believer in this nowadays. And I wish I had understood this earlier. But I think one of the reasons why I didn't get it earlier was the fact that it served me so well. Like I said, without this so-called never-ending insecurity, never-ending fuel that keeps me going, I would not have been able to do what I do fitness-wise, or start companies, or move from one country to another, or leave relationships, or just do hard resets, something that not many people are willing to do in life, or they don't have the courage. But, and I'm not saying I'm any better than anybody else, but in this category, I've been extremely, what's the right word, brave. But it's that drive in me that has kept me going. And now my big mission for the next, I don't know, 1 to 5 years is to make sure that I can actually replace most of that negative energy, that dirty fuel, with a cleaner fuel. So I replace every should with the want, and then I start catching myself more and more and more, the way I talk to myself, and say, okay, you can't do that anymore. And then I replace those bad words with the good ones. That's the negative self-talk. The other thing, which is a huge thing as well, that just very recently, this was last year, that I understood this, and it's this concept of full range of emotions. So think about this concept of a thermometer. So you have this old-fashioned from bottom to top type of a thermometer, and 0 being at the bottom, 100 being at the top. So 0 obviously represents rock bottom, really deep depression and bad feelings. And then 100 is like the sky high. I'm on top of the world type of a feeling. And I would argue that most of us, the reason why life gets hard is that we're trying to avoid those bottom emotions. But if you numb the bad, you also numb the good. This is my theory, that most of us will live in that 40 to 60% mushy middle, that comfortable middle section. And the problem with that is that you're desperately trying to avoid those bad emotions, because if you think about decisions and our choices in life, we always decide something based on how we want to feel. And I can use myself as an example over and over here, but I think I'm notorious. I'm very passionate. So you put me behind a wheel, I drive a car, and people, according to my opinion, don't really behave the way it should be, or they don't drive the way they should be driving in traffic. And I'm like, hey, come on, I honk the horn, and I express my emotions. So then I started thinking about this, that why am I so sometimes aggressive when it comes to traffic and driving? And it's the same thing, that that I try to avoid the emotion and the feeling of somebody basically being in my way and not allowing me to live life on my own terms. This might sound ridiculous, but I hope you're able to understand what I'm trying to say. The bottom line being that if we were able to be comfortable with the full range of emotions, in other words, fall in love with the emotions, we would be comfortable with any outcome. We no longer have to avoid that. Because when we yell at people, when we express our emotions in a bad way, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with expressing or feeling the full range of emotions. That's actually the opposite. We want to do that. We welcome that idea. But when we overreact, is the right word, it's always a sign that we're not comfortable with the full range of emotions. When your partner in a bad relationship is always blaming you, it's the same thing as that person, in this case I'm going to use she, because I'm a male. Let's say she always blames you. It means that that person, your wife or your girlfriend, is not comfortable with those feelings that your actions result in her head, so to say. And I call it outsourcing the problems. But ultimately what it is you not being comfortable with the feelings and the emotions. And I've been trying to practice this a lot. So the last couple of years have been hard for me financially, because I've been trying to do a managed ramp down of my real estate business, and willing to lose money there, say no to projects, and take care of some warranty costs and my contractor going bankrupt and whatnot. So I'm looking at like this negative spiral in my bank account, so money just disappearing, and then trying to ramp up my consulting and coaching business, this education business simultaneously. And some of these things have been really hard, because on the other hand, you're dealing with the unknown of, okay, when is this going to take off? Is it ever going to take off? How can I monetize the new thing? And then at the same time, you're like, okay, I have to say no to this old stuff so that I can actually get good at the new stuff. And I've been really forced to face certain emotions that I've never, what's the right word, witnessed, or I haven't been forced to deal with them in the past. And it's been a very new experience for me, and it's been refreshing and welcoming, but it's hard sometimes when you wake up in the middle of the night, you're like, it's 4 a.m. and you're like, oh my God, I have to use the bathroom, I can't fall back asleep. And then head starts to spin and you start thinking about all these bad things, and then you go into this thing of, okay, why do you feel so uncomfortable with this thing? It's not the outcome that I'm afraid of, but it's the emotion and the feeling that makes me really super scared. And then I'm like, okay, knowing that this is the case, then what's the recipe? Get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Learn how to deal with that tough emotion, because ultimately nothing bad is going to happen. Most of the things that we worry about and try to avoid the emotions, according to studies, I've been talking about this a lot, 91% of the worries on average that we have on a daily basis never materialize. What about the remaining 9%? 1/3 of them turn out better than expected. So the numbers are on our side. So why do we stress about this stuff? Well, it's again the negativity bias. Our brain is exceptionally good at sensing danger. We've talked about this too. It's because it's the survival mechanism. And if you talk about anybody on the street and ask them to list everything that's wrong in their life, and they're able to come up with this long list of things. But then you flip the question, you're like, okay, tell me something positive. They're like, let me think. I have to think about this. And that's the exact same thing. So we are very good at spotting these things. Like I mentioned in the first part of my today's live, that the negative self-talk, it's the exact same thing. You can always find the things that are wrong. Okay, I have to tweak this little detail. I have to change that font. This doesn't look perfect. It's the same negativity bias that serves us so well in so many things. But the real question is that how do I find the balance between the science of achievement and the joy of fulfillment? That's really what I'm trying to say here. And that's where these two things come into play: negative self-talk and being able to feel the full range of emotions. And I'm using, this is fascinating to me. Maybe you can tell that I'm passionate about this stuff, but I've been the student of life. I've been a student of myself, my own mind, as long as I remember. Ever since I would say middle schooler, I've been thinking about stuff a lot inside my own head. So I've been able to get a lot of reps in. So I know myself really well. And that's why I can digest some of these things and analyze and put things into different buckets when it comes to myself. And it's not always healthy if you do it beyond a certain point, because thinking is just one part, and then taking action is really the thing that makes you better. But I always think that self-understanding is the first step, and then you have to, so that you know what to do, because otherwise you're just shooting in the dark, seeing what sticks, or throwing paint at the wall and see if it can cover the whole thing. But so those things, and like I said, it's been fascinating, and these are my two major focus areas for 2026. And I don't make any New Year's resolutions. I've talked about this as well. I don't believe in that stuff, because to me, it's a two-step process. I look at a couple of anchor points that are my signal, that are so far out in the future that those are the things that I mentioned being my deathbed moment regrets. What do I need to do now so that I don't have any regrets when I'm out of time? And then I just have these daily goals. But if I look at one of my anchor points for my 90-year-old version of myself, one of those things is that I want to see how good I can be. I want to see what I'm truly capable of and what I'm made out of. If that's the case, then I need to keep getting better. I need to keep getting better and analyze myself, because I want to do that. It's not a should, it's a want, which means want is clean fuel, should is toxic fuel. But that's one of my big missions, so that's why I want to keep doing that, and then take action. But I got to be careful so that there's not too much stuff on my plate. But yeah, negative self-talk is one of the major fixing areas, and then making sure that I expose myself to full range of emotions so that I'm not scared of any of that stuff. I can take everything head on. I sweep nothing under the rug, and state the facts, tell the truth, be authentic to your own values, and not be afraid of any emotions. I have to admit that I've always lived my life that way. I haven't been able to really understand why, meaning facing the hard stuff and not sweeping anything under the rug. There's nothing that happens tomorrow in my vocabulary. It's always right now because I want to tackle it. I want to solve it. One of the reasons why I've been doing that, by the way, is the fact that I haven't been comfortable with certain fires. And that's one of the things that I had to learn last year, which was to focus things. Say no to a bunch of stuff so that you can say yes to the most important things. And that's, by the way, one of the reasons why I'm in Spain here for the second time this winter. This is the second month I'm spending here because I want to just put all eggs in this new business basket. And I have to say no to my family and my kids a little bit so that I can come here by myself and just get stuff done. Yeah, they are older, they don't need me anymore, so 17 and 20. That's a different discussion. Hope this made sense. These are the things I want to keep talking about on my channel. I'm passionate about this, helping people. And that's why I do this. I'm just, honestly, if I can help anybody and pass on the knowledge and the experience that I've been able to collect, then I think then life becomes really meaningful. It's the joy of fulfillment. The science of achievement is a different thing. It's a different bucket. That's the push, motivation, but the pull is the joy of fulfillment. What's your life's mission? And I think mine is to live my life fully, live life on my own terms, collect a lot of experience. No excuses, just do the hard stuff because that's what you have to do so that you don't have any regrets in the end, and then document it, tell about it, and pass it on, and hopefully you can help somebody else along the way as well. Anyhow, it's a rainy, cloudy day today. It's been pretty nice and sunny here, but according to the weather forecast, it's gonna turn cloudy. I don't know why, but well, it's winter, I guess. That's all I had today. This is gonna be recorded. You can watch this after the fact. Hopefully this made some sense. And if you're watching my stuff for the first time, I would appreciate it if you could hit the like and the subscribe buttons and send me comments and questions. I'll live for those. Those are great. Okay, thanks a lot. Talk to you again later.